What is up, guys? I'm Kyle with FAE, and today we're installing hydraulic assist on the straight axle Suburban. You probably haven't been able to tell in the few clips and videos that I've been putting out on social media, but with the Suburban and the 37-inch tires, plus it weighing around 8,000 pounds, the thing is super hard to steer off-road. Most of the time it's fine, but whenever those front tires get bound up and I'm going downhill and I've got a lot of pressure on them, the steering just does not want to respawn. It just feels rock solid. It's taken everything I've got to get it to turn, and usually I have to give it a little bit of gas just to get those tires to kind of slip in the turn. But the truck's too big already for the trail, so I need to be able to make those turns, and this hydraulic assist is going to do just that for me. Another issue I have with this truck is the front axle having a little bit of death wobble. Very popular amongst the straight axle crews that have got 37 or bigger tires on there. So for now, I had a steering stabilizer on there that just fixed it for me. And until I can dig into that front axle more thoroughly later on, this hydraulic assist is going to be the king of all steering stabilizers, and that should be totally gone now. One of the most important parts when you're opening up this package is to remember to save the packaging in the box. I got the kit that came with an additional rebuilt steering box, so if I want to get my core back, I'm gonna have to send it in, and it'd be nice to have this packaging and not have to pay for something new. Comes with these two super heavy duty line. The rebuilt steering box, it's already tapped here, which is awesome, and I like how they marked center on there so you don't have to worry about figuring that out. And then right here looks like we've got the Ram. And as you can see, this comes totally unpainted as well. So it looks like these are some receipts. I'm guessing there'll probably be some directions in here too. And then in this box, we've got the heim joint end for the Ram. A couple tabs, really glad that those are in there. The other end of the Ram, mounting hardware, some more tabs. Got a couple 90-degree bends there, and the end of the hardware. Looks like I've got everything I need. Really excited about this. You know, it's kind of funny for how big these engine bays are. There really just isn't a lot of room in there. And working on the steering box specifically, there's a few fittings you need to take off on the power steering on the top. It gets really tight. It is a dirty job. There are a ton of tools that I'll just rent from AutoZone or O'Reilly's, something like that. But a pitman arm puller is one thing that I've ended up using a ton of times. I think it costs like 12 bucks at AutoZone. And every time my friends need one, I just give it to them. It works great. On this pitman arm, when I previously did the solid axle swap, I put a little bit of anti-seed on there because these pitman arms are known to stick on there. This one came off with no problem. I'll make sure when I put it back on, I do the same thing. But I'm also going to put some Loctite on the nut on the bottom. Don't want that thing coming off. Taking the old steering box off hasn't been much of a problem because I can just take the bolts out, and because of what I have underneath, there's this big cross member, it just sits on that. Putting the steering box in is kind of a two-person job. It's really heavy for how small it is, so to hold it up and put the bolts in is not easy. It can be done, it just takes forever. One of the most important parts of setting up the ram is making sure that it's parallel with the tie rod, not only front to back, but also top to bottom. To figure out the mounting location for the ram mounts onto the tie rod, I first made sure the steering wheel was dead center, took the key out so the steering wheel would be locked, made sure the wheels and tires were centered, measured with the ram collapsed where those brackets aligned with the tie rod. Then I extended the ram all the way, measured from that same point on the mounting tab, and marked it again. Then I took a measuring tape, measured the distance between those two marks on the tie rod, divided it in half, or took the middle of the two marks, and that's where I was going to mount the tie rod to make sure I had an even level of travel in either direction. I just recently started using this welder's anti-spatter spray before I start welding, and it makes a notable difference, but there's still a little bit to clean up. I put some of this Rust-Oleum hammered silver spray paint on this ram, and I think it looks pretty cool. So we've got everything hooked up. Now we need to hook up the hoses. I'm gonna put them onto the steering box, find out how to route them through without them getting hung up by anything else. And then we're gonna fill it up with fluid. We're gonna run it both ways until we stop getting bubbles. So the directions say that on 90% of the applications, the port on the top of the steering box is the hose that connects to the passenger side of the vehicle, or in this case, the passenger side of the ram. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because you could just mount the ram the other way and then the side that's the passenger changed, right? So I have a feeling most people run it with the ram base on the differential side and then have the hookup on the tie rod on the passenger side. I'm guessing that's the most common way to do it. I decided to go the opposite because I'm a bit of a maniac. Holy smokes, we hooked it up, and after we bled all the bubbles out, started it up, super smooth and no binding. So the directions worked. I guess I was just overthinking it. Maybe not, we'll see when you try this on your car. So far looks like we have a successful install, so what I'm gonna do is put the U-bolts back on the spring so it doesn't fall off while I'm driving it around. Then I've got to clean up some welds. I'm gonna paint this tie rod and go see how it does on the road. On this beast, I really don't get worked up about overspray or anything like that, especially when I'm working on the bottom, because pretty much everything down here gets primered and then gets a semi-gloss black over it. So anything that gets oversprayed down here probably needs a touch up anyway. Truck is back together. Just took it for a drive, works great. Got everything all painted up, just need to give the truck a wash. So I've seen a bunch of videos of people saying that they can turn the steering wheel with just one finger now. That's not the case for me. It's actually probably a little bit harder, if anything, but the difference is at a standstill, I can obviously just crank the wheels as much as I want. No problem there. Driving around, it is a steering stabilizer on crack. The truck just drives in a straight line. Every time I hit a bump, nothing, just goes right through it. So really looking forward to trying this out on the trail. Hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos of me wrenching on the Suburban, go ahead and click subscribe. We've also got some new stuff coming out. Got a new project on the way that will hopefully be interesting.